My bad on the late start date. It's a lot going on, a lot happening. That's for a future conversation. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. All right, first things first. Welcome to CNN. I am your host, the underdog, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. We try our best to stay biblical. All right. And again, my fault for the late start. Life happens, right? Life comes at you hard. Eat a Snickers or whatever the slogan is. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? You guys are sharp people. I know that you are. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? There's a lot I could talk about. But let's talk about Chud the Builder. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I ever heard of this guy until the news clip that we're about to watch. I didn't. Apparently, this guy was I love how they, like, now a social media personality is actually like a thing. It's almost like a life coach, right? There's social media personality, but basically what this guy would do was he would go around. He's in the Tennessee area, Nashville, Tennessee area. He'd go around and record him using the N-word to black people, antagonizing them. And then when they react, he'd be saying they're chimping out. And so apparently he got a ton of followers in his social media and all that, right? I had never heard of this dude. Never heard of him. Big world, I guess. Well, he got into a recent situation, and this is when I heard of Chud the Builder. Not this particular news clip we're about to watch, but nonetheless, this is what happens, and we'll watch this, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Chud the Builder, ladies and gentlemen.
A controversial Clarksville online video streamer is now facing an attempted murder charge. It's the result of a fight outside the Montgomery County Courthouse that ended in gunfire. Good evening and welcome to News 2 at 6. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Haley Wilgus. Authorities say Dalton Etherly, also known as Chud the Builder, and another man were both shot during this exchange. News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry has more on the investigation.
Controversial streamer Dalton Etherly, known online as Chud the Builder, is accused of shooting a man outside the Montgomery County Courthouse. The sheriff's office says both Etherly and another man were taken to the hospital for medical treatment. After the shooting, Etherly appeared to keep live streaming for several minutes. In the video, Etherly can be heard saying, quote, "Man, I just pray that dude is going to be all right. I tried to walk away from him." Court records show Etherly was scheduled for a civil debt appearance that morning in Montgomery County. In Etherly's stream, he claimed the incident started after a man laughed at him. Etherly claims he walked away after interacting with the man. The man followed him and a fight broke out. That's when Etherly drew his weapon. The Montgomery.
Now, there's a court case here. I have no idea if that's what happened. But what I would say is, from the clips I've seen of this guy doesn't walk away from people. He walks towards people, antagonizes them, and then mocks them when they respond. So that'll all play out, but it gets more interesting. Let's watch.
Montgomery County Sheriff's Office is pursuing charges against Etherly for criminal attempted murder, aggravated assault, and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. Etherly is also facing a separate criminal case in Nashville. He's accused of refusing to pay a $400 bill to Bob's Steak and Chop House downtown and screaming racial slurs. Etherly has over 226,000 followers on X, all due to his live streams where he's shown in places like Broadway, Clarksville, and Gatlinburg, insulting and calling people racial slurs. In a Give, Send, Go post, Etherly writes, "I've shared mild jokes, unfiltered thoughts, and yes, sometimes I've used the N-word in what I thought was edgy, harmless humor. I know it's controversial, but it's my right to speak freely." Etherly is booked into the Montgomery County Jail, where he's being held without bond. He will have his arraignment and bond hearing on Friday. In Nashville, Caitlin Quisenberry, News 2.
A controversial Clarksville.
All right. So this guy walks up to black people, calling them the N-word, which is the most racially charged word, quite possibly in at least modern human history. I mean, people know, like, if you say that word and you're not black, no. If you say that word with the ER instead of the A, even if you're black, it's going to cause a problem, right? Because of the historical nature of that word. People know that, particularly in this modern era. So he does that stuff to people and he says it. Now, here's the other problem. He claims to be a believer. So he believes that he's a Christian. I'm going to show you this in a second as evidence, but I'm going to say this first. Here's the problem with what I've been saying for years about being theological. There's no problem with being a Christian involved in politics or having a political party that you stand behind, right? The problem is when you mix the morality of the Constitution or the rights, what people call my God-given rights, right? God does not give us the rights that the Constitution does. Mankind does. Let me just use one example, right? Free speech. He said in the text that you just, they read a quote from him describing it's my right to have free speech, right? The Bible does not give us free speech. There are a host of proverbs that talk about taming the tongue, holding the tongue, right? You got James chapter 3 devotes the whole first chapter to taming the tongue, right? You have Ephesians 4 that talks about crude humor. So he says to be edgy. Ephesians talks about how you use your mouth and being crude and all those things, insulting people. Matthew 5, Jesus talks about insulting your brother. You can go to hell for that, right? This is the problem. When you start taking the constitutional morality and you mix it with biblical morality, then you create this persona that God is behind me because God cares about me having free speech. And no, God cares about you actually taming your speech. James 1, let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak. So the Bible's emphasis is on, man, hush up, fam. Don't talk so much. When words are many, sin is not absent. But whoever holds his tongue in wise, it's Proverbs 24, I think, verse 19. This guy is saying he's a Christian and this is what happens when you are theological. You start believing that constitutional morality is the same thing as biblical holiness, and they're not the same, right? But let me prove to you that this guy says he's a Christian. One of the YouTubers that I appreciate the most is a guy whose name is What Do You Mean? He's a good dude. I like a lot of his stuff. He does a lot of good covering. We're going to watch a little bit of his perspective on Chud the Builder, and he is the one who introduces just the idea that Chud the Builder considers himself a Christian, and he's going to show him why he says that. And then we're going to talk about deeper than what I just said of why that's problematic. It should be for all of us. All right, here we go.
Disturbing is that he also films himself offering homeless people food, but refuses to give it to them unless they say that it's okay for white people to say the N-word.
Come on, get the burgers. But we got to make sure you believe in free speech first. Yes or no? So white people can say nigger?
And even more, he frames the whole thing as God endorsing what he's doing.
I know the Lord's with me, dude. Like I said, 3 days after they banned me, the Lord graced me with now I just hit 100,000 followers in a month or two. And it's mind-blowing. And so it's like they cut my tongue out, and then the Lord gave me a voice that makes them sound like a mosquito in your ear.
Let me just say this real quick. I don't know why people think that when they get blessed, it's always and only the Lord. Like, let's be clear here, right? In Matthew chapter 4 and Luke 4, we have what we know as this iconic scene of the temptation of Christ by Satan. Satan is offering him things, two of the things. One of them is turn these stones to bread, right? You do this. But then the other two things are essentially gifts. I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. Or the other one is jump down from here. But he offers them, like, Satan is allowed to give people gifts and bless people, and we think it's from the Lord. You can tell it's from the Lord if does it promote character or remove yourself from it? Wow, I just got this new promotion, but I'm going to have to miss Sundays at church. That might not be from the Lord, fam. Oh, I just met this wonderful person and I'm in a great relationship, but they're not a Christian. The devil is allowed to give things to people. So I just think it bothers me when people say, oh, the Lord's behind me because this happened and that happened. I think it was the enemy was behind him and blessing him to keep him going, keep going. But I digress. All right, back to Chud the Builder.
He believes he's doing God's work because he does all of this in the name of a fight for free speech, which is also the story he tells on his fundraiser. But there's an issue with that story. In a recent interview with the founder of the Proud Boys, Chud told a seemingly different version of how he got fired.
Well, there was I was just driving to work, and she starts yelling at me saying, "What the fuck's your problem? What's your problem?" And I said, "Nick, I'm just doing the speed limit." And then as soon as I said that, she threw her drink out the window. She said, threw the drink out at the truck. I rolled the window up, and then we drive to the next light. Of course, we get the red light again. She rolls her window down again, and all I did was I rolled mine down and hit her with the cross. They took that picture, posted it everywhere, said, "This guy's calling us hard R's, blah, blah, blah," got me fired. I started my company in response to this. This was about 2 years ago. And that's followed me throughout the whole time trying to, there's the picture of me with the cross. And
okay, now this is interesting because according to the fundraiser, he was fired over edgy humor that he posted online.
All right. There's more that could be said there, but I think you get the point. So let's talk. Let's talk, right? You have heard of the separation of church and state. It's a big deal. We've heard about this since the writing of the Constitution, right? It's not in the Constitution, but there's this sort of idea and expectation of the separation of church and state. I want to bring you hip to the title of this video, a different way to process this. This is a separation of church and faith. It's not a play on words. This is what I think is a reality. This is what we're seeing happen in the modern church, particularly the modern American evangelical church, is the separation of church and faith, right? There's a separation of what my faith should produce as a result of being a part of the church. There's a complete separation. How does a guy like Chud the Builder and many others claim that Christ is actually endorsing what I'm doing and stand on that? And people actually applaud it. If I were to let the video keep going, what do you mean would have showed comment sections from this given, I think it's called Give and Go. Some name where it's like where you can give money to help people. I forgot, there's a bunch of those. It used to be just one, but now it's like giving something. And in the comment section, it's like, man, praise God for you. Keep doing God's work, such and such, such and such. They connected to free speech. And like, these are supposed to be, if those people are believers, you're saying that Jesus is okay with you walking up to Black people and using the N-word. And he's okay with you. There's other videos where he was threatening, man, I'll take your life. I'll kill you. He's saying all these things, right? There's a separation of church and faith. There's the faith, right, that we're called to demonstrate. And then there's the church, the entity where people profess to be a part of the church and a Christian. And I think this is why it's connected. This is what's missing. There's something that Jesus said that I think we need to examine carefully, because Jesus says something to Peter that is mind-blowing, all right? We're going to look at the context, Matthew 16, and then we're going to zoom in on what Jesus said. This is the one thing that we're all missing. This is the difference between the church and people who have real faith. The church is just anyone who professes to be a believer, like this guy. He even said that his pastor said he can't be in the church, but then eventually decided that he could be, or something like that, right? Let's look at this scene in Matthew 16. I'm going to start from the beginning, and not the beginning, but I want to give you bigger context, because what Jesus says to Peter here, when we look at what he's saying, who he's saying it to, and examine what he means and what this means about how we say things, is everything. And if people got this one thing, I think a lot of people would stop talking the way they're talking and acting the way they're acting. But let's see this for ourselves, right? Beginning in Matthew 16, verse 13. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah. Remember who said it? It was Peter who said, you are the Christ, Son of the living God. He said, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who was in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then he strictly charged his disciples to tell no one who he was. All right, this is a crazy scene. Jesus just told Peter, if you're the one of the disciples and you heard that, you were just like, wow, he really gave Peter a lot of praise. First of all, the fact that Peter didn't just intuitively know that Jesus was the Son of, he said, the Father in heaven revealed this to you. Then he said, upon this rock, I will build my church. I will give you the keys of the kingdom. That is very high praise. Jesus says this to Peter explicitly. But look what happens in the next scene, right? Listen to this, starting in verse 21. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to suffer to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Wow. Okay, let's walk through this, right? He just told Peter, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because my Father revealed to you who I am, right? Then he says, your name is Peter. I'm going to build my rock on this, right? Now, some people say he built his rock on Peter, which is where the Catholic Church sort of finds its, the beginning of its pope, like Peter's the first pope. And some people say, well, he said he's going to build it on the foundation on what Peter said, that Jesus is the Christ. I tend to go with the latter, but I digress. He praises Peter. Then in the next scene, he tells the disciples that he's going to suffer many things from the elders and chief priests, scribes, be killed and raised on the third day. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, right? Rebuke is a very firm word. It's actually a word that in the New Testament is only largely used by pastors. Like elders do rebuking. It doesn't say people rebuke each other. Usually when that passage, that word is used, it's someone with church authority by God does that. Rebuking is something that elders do. Peter rebukes the Lord, right? Listen to what Jesus says back to Peter, right? He says, get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Process that statement, right? He just told Peter, he called Peter Satan. We have no exegetical reason to believe that Satan entered Peter like he did Judas to betray Jesus. He's calling Peter Satan just for telling the Lord, far be it from you, this shall never happen to you. That's all Peter said. Jesus calls him Satan and then says, you are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind. Now let's take this into account. Jesus knows everything. Yes, he did not allow himself to access all of his attributes as fully God. We get that from Philippians 2, right? 5 through 11. But we knew Jesus knew a lot of things. Jesus knew Peter loved him. He knew that Peter didn't understand. He knew that Peter was well-meaning. He knew that Peter was not trying to disobey God when he said that. Peter was thinking, I'm looking out for my friend, this guy that I love, right? Jesus knew all of these things, right? And he still called Peter Satan because of what he said. Here's what I'm trying to get you to see. Jesus is God. He speaks on behalf of the Father. He's God. So when Jesus speaks, every time he speaks, God is speaking. So from God's perspective, even if you are well-meaning, you love God, you're ignorant of what you're doing and saying because you don't know everything, and you really care about the situation, even if you are all of those things, if you say something that slightly deviates from the truth of God, from God's perspective, that is satanic. That's satanic. This is a scene that helps us see the holiness of God. God is so holy that even if you misrepresent what his will is, he sees that as satanic. He said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me," to a guy that he knows loves him. Keep in mind that when he died and came back, he told Mary, "Go tell the disciples and Peter," right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, even the angel told him to go tell Peter. There was a special affinity for Peter, probably because Peter rejected him 3 times, and he wanted to make that right. Here's the point that I'm saying. We take these things that we just misrepresent God, and like it's nothing. Oh, well. Remember in the book of Job? If you really look at what Job's friends said, it wasn't like they gave bad counsel. They were basically saying, brother, you must have done something to have God do this to you. God told Job in Job 42, man, pray for your friends and offer a sacrifice because I'm getting ready to take them out for things that they said. And he told them, you spoke about God is not playing, right? He's not playing. And we just think of, oh, he's just this level, like he's just this lovable, always just ready. God is not playing. He will tell his disciple, whom he knows loves him, your words are satanic. Your thinking is satanic. Now let's take that to Chud the Builder. You're saying the Lord has your back because you're insulting image bearers, and you believe because you have more followers on whatever social media that's God's affirmation. But God told Peter, you are satanic. He called him Satan. Your thinking and your words are satanic because they oppose the will of God. Chud the Builder is tripping. He is wilding right now. You think that's honoring the Lord, insulting people like that? And Peter, a close friend and disciple, he said was Satan? This is what we're missing. That if God is that serious about speech, can you imagine? What if you took, people often think that they say and do things, and they don't think about the consequences of them. We just think God is just he loves us so much that he just doesn't care what we do and there's no consequences for it. There are situations where people, complain about, like, gossip, slander, cause division and rivalry. Like, God does not play with that stuff. He doesn't play. And even if you think you're well-meaning or well-intended, if God told Peter that what he just said was satanic, think about all the things that you and I say that deviate from the will of God, from the truth of God, from what God requires. If Peter is satanic, then what in the world are you and I when we say and do things that way? God is holy. Chud the Builder is tripping. And while I don't know what the outcome of his trial will be, I will say this. I think God is displaying his holiness in the fact that he got into this altercation, shot a guy, and now the guy who just said, the Lord has my back because I've gotten all these followers, is now going to have to watch his back because he's in prison. And largely probably because prison populations can have a lot of black people in them, a lot of N-words in them. He's going to go there, and now you're going to have to watch your back because all them people, it was funny when you had a camera up and you were acting like God was for it, and now you're in prison for attempted murder. Not like a, soliciting outside of a public business, attempted murder, man. Your bail was big money. It was 1.25 million, which you got to provide 10%, which means you got to come up with $125,000 just to get out. Now, apparently one of his GoFundMe type things has more than that. Maybe he'll use it to get it. I don't know. I don't know if he's able to access that. But I do know this. This is the one thing we need that we're all missing or forgetting. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. It would behoove us. When's the last time you heard a big black dude that looks like me use the word behoove? Golly! It would behoove us. Hope that's the right word. That would be why I was like, that wasn't the right word. To take our words, as James 3 says, and tame our tongue more seriously. There are times we think we're doing the right thing, and we're actually causing division or harm by our words. And we think because there's no immediate consequences that like we're good. And I just think we can be in a day. Peter, by God's grace, he was there and spoke to his thing immediately. We're supposed to learn from that, not ignore that we don't have immediate consequences for what we say. And here's why Christianity in America is just falling. It's just falling because we don't care anymore. We support a president who just mocks people made in the image of God. We judge all these different things. I'm not even going to go down that road because that's the drumbeat I've been hitting. We do not have free speech, biblically speaking. We have tame speech. We do not get to just grieve and vent without consequence. We do not get to just be bitter. And, you know, bitterness says you fail to obtain the grace of God. And it says that bitterness is a root that defiles many. You know why? You know why? Because when you're bitter, you tell other people what you're bitter at, and then they take up your offenses. And God says it. This isn't my word. God says that. This dude is crazy. He's got people taking up his defense, acting as if praise God for you, bro, praying for you, bro. Man, the world, American church is a grill, and we're cooked. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm one of the dudes that he would put in his video and tell me I'm pimping out if I get upset. Grace and peace. See you next video.